When the gavel drops and a life sentence is handed down, even the toughest gang leaders face a moment of reckoning. But how do they truly react when their power, freedom, and future vanish in an instant? This is the reaction of gang leaders as they confront the life-altering weight of a life sentence. Our first takes us to Washtenaw County Trial Court in Michigan, where Tariq Jackson is being sentenced to prison for murder. In July 2015, 16-year-old Tariq Jackson fatally shot Keandre Duff during a gang-related confrontation at a block party in Ypsilanti, Michigan. Prosecutors allege that Jackson pulled out a gun and fired after a fight broke out between rival gangs, Rack Life and BOH, also known as Finesse. Duff, a member of Rack Life, was shot in the head and subsequently died from his injuries. During Jackson's sentencing, Keandre Duff's mother, Marquita Claiborne, addressed him directly, expressing her pain over her son's death.
Our whole world was turned upside down from that point. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because that when our children...
She recounted the moment she learned of Duff's murder and extended forgiveness to Jackson, urging him to seek salvation through God.
Is still going to be a great man. All he has to do is give it to the Lord.
Jackson apologized to Duff's family and acknowledged the harmful consequences of gang involvement.
I just want to say sorry to the family of the victim. I wish the situation would have played out like that. I never thought that my choices and decisions would have affected so many people. No mother deserves to bury her son, and no mother deserves to see her son change. 16 at the time of the incident, I was young, angry, full of pride, caught in the streets and in the middle of gangs and all type of other stuff.
He further reflected on the risks of gang life, stating that living in gangs isn't worth risking 16 years in prison or even death. Jackson not only pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, but also admitted to armed robbery, weapons charges, and lying under oath. He was sentenced to 17 to 40 years in prison. Next, we head to Wisconsin Circuit Court. Michael Thomas is facing serious charges. Back in 2011, when he was just 16 years old, Thomas was driving a stolen minivan with two friends, Malik Merchant and Jimmy Scales. They stopped at West Lisbon Avenue, where they tried to rob a woman named Sharon Staples. Thomas jumped out of the car and demanded that Sharon hand over her purse. But when Sharon refused, Thomas shot her. Sharon was 34 years old and 12 weeks pregnant at the time. After the shooting, Thomas was arrested and pleaded guilty to 2 counts of first-degree reckless homicide, 1 for killing Sharon and 1 for her unborn child. During his sentencing, Thomas seemed calm at first, but then things took a wild turn. As he was about to leave the courtroom, he tried to move toward his family. That's when the court deputies quickly tackled him to the ground, causing a huge commotion in the courtroom.
Don't do that!
The deputies were able to get Thomas on his feet, but they still couldn't control him. After a few tense moments, they finally restrained him and escorted him out of the courtroom. The sheriff then stepped in to calm down Thomas's upset family members.
Listen, all right, please. No good is going to be done by this courtroom being disrupted, okay? What's going to happen is we are going to allow the other people that were in this courtroom to leave, okay?
Michael Thomas was sentenced to 35 years in prison. Malik Merchant, who acted as the lookout during the robbery, got 17 years. The getaway driver, Jimmy Scales, who said he was part of the street gang Disciples, was sentenced to 25 years. David Moses at Los Angeles County Superior Court in California for the trial of the brutal murder of Dorothy Session. When Moses was just 17, he and 2 others broke into Dorothy's home, planning to rob the 81-year-old woman. But when Dorothy tried to resist, Moses viciously attacked her, beating her to death. He later admitted to investigators that he struck her. When the police found Dorothy's body, it showed signs of a violent attack. She had a broken nose, missing teeth, cuts to her mouth, and black eyes. Moses was arrested, and 2 years later, he was convicted of first-degree murder. However, during his sentencing, Moses showed no regret. He laughed and yawned through the entire process as if he didn't care at all. He even chuckled and yawned repeatedly, acting like the situation was boring to him. At one point, Moses even dozed off in his chair. A relative of Dorothy's session gave an emotional impact speech during the trial.
If there were more people like holding sessions, we wouldn't be having trials like this.
Prosecutors believed he thought the trial was some kind of game, and they were shocked by his complete lack of remorse for what he had done. As Moses faced the possibility of spending many years in prison, his lawyer asked the judge for some hope, asking for the chance of parole after 25 years.
Give him that hope for the next 25 years, that he may have an opportunity to be returned to society.
However, the judge wasn't convinced and decided to sentence Moses to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge made it clear that Moses deserved this punishment because he was a dangerous person who didn't belong in society. Since Moses had been sentenced as a juvenile, a recent change in the law meant he could be resentenced as an adult. Even though there was a chance his sentence could be reduced to 25 years to life, the judge emphasized that Moses hadn't shown any effort to change since his conviction. Considering the brutality of his crime, the judge reaffirmed the sentence: life in prison without parole. The prosecutor stated he deserved the punishment he got.
Mr. Moses received the punishment he deserved. Frankly put, he's just a dangerous individual, and there's only one place to put him, and that's in the penitentiary for the rest of his life.
At Bedford County Circuit Court in Virginia, Victor Rodas is facing murder charges after being involved in a brutal crime. On March 27, 2017, Rodas and 4 other members of the MS-13 gang kidnapped and killed Raymond Wood, a 17-year-old. His body was found in the woods, about 2 hours away from his home in Bedford County. The investigation showed that Rodas had set up a fake drug deal with Wood. After the meeting, Wood was kidnapped, strangled, and stabbed 29 times. Rodas was charged with first-degree murder, robbery, and kidnapping. At his trial, the prosecutor explained that Rodas killed Wood as part of an initiation to move up in the MS-13 gang.
Raymond Wood had to die for several reasons. He had to die for MS-13. He had to die for the sailors. He had to die for his reputation and rank within that vile organization.
Rodas' defense team argued that he was only the getaway driver and didn't take part in the stabbing.
He had no idea what was going on. He was just told to get in a vehicle and go on a ride.
It seemed like the trial might end with Rodas walking free until the police found a key piece of evidence. Lead investigator John Maddox testified that while searching the woods, he saw something shiny that caught his attention. He walked toward it and found a knife with a dragon's head on the handle. This knife was the murder weapon used to kill Raymond Wood.
I decided instead of walking back through the high grass, I would walk straight through the woods to my car. I walked about 20 yards and looked down because it was a shimmer of light that hit just right, caught my attention. I looked down on the ground and saw a dragon's head, a metal dragon's head on top of the ground.
With this new evidence, the jury found Rodas guilty of all charges. He was sentenced to 55 years in prison for the murder of Raymond Wood. Luis Bracamontes was on trial in the Sacramento County Superior Court in California for the murders of 2 police officers. On October 24, 2014, Bracamontes went on a violent crime spree in Northern California that left 2 sheriff's deputies dead. It all started in the parking lot of a Motel 6. Sacramento County Sheriff's Deputy Danny Oliver was checking Bracamontes' car when Bracamontes shot him in the head, killing him instantly. Afterward, Bracamontes stole a car and fled to Placer County. There, he shot 2 more law enforcement officers, killing Detective Michael Davis Jr. Bracamontes, who was in the U.S. illegally, was accused of murder, carjacking, and other shootings during his rampage. A massive manhunt followed, and police eventually captured him. Even though he pleaded not guilty, his actions in court told a different story. In the courtroom, Bracamontes showed no regret for his actions.
Ladies and gentlemen, everybody step out of the hallway.
During the trial, his lawyer admitted that Bracamontes was responsible for the deaths of both officers.
He is responsible for the deaths of both Deputy Danny Oliver and Detective Mike Davis.
However, this didn't seem to bother Bracamontes. He smiled, clapped, and even blew kisses at the grieving families of his victims. His lack of remorse was chilling. The jury found Bracamontes guilty of first-degree murder. When the verdict was read, he smiled and cheered, showing no respect for the lives he had taken.
And with malice aforethought commit murder in the first degree.
As he was escorted out of the courtroom, he made one final terrifying threat, leaving everyone uneasy. At Denver District Court in Colorado, Noah Lope Hall is facing several serious charges, including murder. In August 2021, Lope Hall and 4 others, all aged 18 to 21, allegedly went on a shocking crime spree that terrified the state. The group, who had met earlier at a youth correctional center in Golden, Colorado, reportedly planned their actions while in detention. It all started on August 15, 2021. The 5 broke into a business and caused major damage. Later, they attacked a man who was helping his ex-wife, who had cancer. In court, the man shared how his ex-wife felt guilty about the attack.
Even to the day she died at a hospice, she looked over during moments of clarity and apologized to me. I'm sorry. She blamed herself.
The crimes got even worse. A man was robbed and shot, leaving him paralyzed from the waist down. From his hospital bed, the victim, Thomas Young, said, "I went from being an active 30-year-old riding my bike everywhere to not being able to feel anything below my waist." The most horrifying act came next. Shmuel Silverberg, an 18-year-old Jewish student, was leaving the Yeshiva Torah Chaim school in Denver. The group chased him into the school and shot him multiple times, killing him. This senseless act devastated the community.
The most disturbing of all, the murder of an 18-year-old Jewish student who was chased down inside his yeshiva school before being shot repeatedly.
Police arrested 3 of the suspects, including Lope Hall, shortly after the crime spree. The other 2 were caught over 2 months later. All 5 faced serious charges. 4 of them pleaded guilty to crimes like assault and burglary. Aiden Sides was sentenced to 41.5 years in prison. Isaiah Freeman got 30 years, and Samuel Fussell and Seth Lode received 21.5 years and 12 years, respectively. Lope Hall also pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and first-degree kidnapping.
Deserve what I did to them. I wanted to plead guilty because I want to accept responsibility for what I did, and to try to take away some of the hurt I caused.
He was sentenced to 65 years in prison. The crimes left a deep impact on the victims, their families, and the community. This next case takes us to the U.S. District Court for the Middle District of North Carolina, where a rapper and gang member was convicted of killing a young boy. Antonio Davenport, also known as Lil Tony, is a rapper from North Carolina. He was charged with the murder of 9-year-old Zion Person on August 18, 2019, in Durham, North Carolina.
Say 24-year-old Davenport is a known gang member. His record shows ongoing charges of domestic violence, child abuse, drugs, and more. He's also been convicted of burglary in the past.
Davenport, a member of the 8 Trey Gangster Crips, was with 2 other men, Derek Dixon and Devar Magwood. They were involved in a drive-by shooting meant for a rival gang, but they accidentally shot at an SUV carrying children. Tragically, Zion Person was killed. Davenport denied having anything to do with the killing. He said it wasn't gang-related and blamed others who were trying to get lighter sentences. His lawyer claimed that Davenport wasn't part of the 8 Trey Gangster Crips, but was in a different Crips gang at the time. At the time of the murder, Davenport was wearing an ankle monitor for a previous case. The monitor showed that he was at the scene of the crime, at the homes of his co-defendants, and at other places connected to planning and covering up the crime. Surveillance footage from a middle school showed Davenport's car following Zion's car just before the shooting. After the crime, Davenport had his car repainted black. Police later found a 9mm handgun in his girlfriend's car, and tests showed that the gun was used in the murder. Davenport's girlfriend, the mother of his child, said she bought ammunition for him the day before. She also admitted that police found the gun in her car, and Davenport asked her to say it was hers. Davenport was charged with murder, using a gun during a violent crime and causing Zion's death. In March 2021, his co-defendants Dixon and Magwood admitted to being involved in a gang and committing violent crimes to support it. They also explained how the 8 Trey gangster Crips have a rivalry with another gang, O-Block, and how new members are beaten as part of the initiation. On October 4, 2022, Antonio Davenport Jr. was sentenced to life in prison.
Today, a judge sentenced 2 men charged with murdering this 9-year-old boy to life in prison. Zion Person was on his way to get a snow cone when he was shot to death inside the car.
Zion's family, they all came out here to the courthouse steps. They were hugging and rejoicing. Finally, they feel a little bit of peace.
A release of emotions.
At the Jefferson District Courthouse, gang leader Gallegos and 2 other men, Alonzo Quintana and Rene Francisco Rosales, faced charges of brutal murder. They lured, kidnapped, and shot 28-year-old Simone Duran 10 times before setting her body on fire. On a hot Monday in 2018, Gallegos was charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy, kidnapping, and retaliation against a witness, among other serious crimes. His victim, Simone Duran, was a young mother of 2 who had identified Quintana in a police lineup earlier that year. Her brave act of pointing out a suspect turned her into a target. Gallegos contacted Duran through social media, pretending to be friendly. He and his associates lured her to a house in Denver under the pretense of a gathering. Later, they took her to a remote location where Quintana joined them. Together, they forced Duran into a car, drove to an isolated spot, and killed her in cold blood. The horror didn't end there. Gallegos and Rosales returned later with gasoline to burn her body, trying to erase evidence. Firefighters found her remains after responding to reports of a brush fire, and the discovery shocked the community. Investigators pieced together the crime through social media messages, surveillance footage, and witness accounts. Duran's connection to the earlier attempted murder case became the key motive. By November 2018, Gallegos, Quintana, and Rosales were arrested. During the trial, prosecutors laid out the grim details. Before the sentencing, the judge had this to say:
It was a horrific crime. I am struck by the casualness in which it was committed, the absolute disregard for human life.
Quintana, a repeat offender, faced charges of murder, kidnapping, and violence. Gallegos, the mastermind, received a life sentence plus 163 years on January 31, 2020. Jonaike Martinez Estrella was facing murder charges in the Appellate Division of New York State Supreme Court. On the night of June 20, 2018, Estrella, along with Manuel Rivera, Elvin Garcia, Jose Munz, and Antonio Santiago, brutally stabbed and killed 15-year-old Leandro Guzman Feliz. All 5 were part of a vicious Dominican gang called the Trinitarios. According to reports, Leandro had gone to meet a new friend a few blocks away from his apartment in the Bronx when 4 cars pulled up, mistaking him for a rival gang member. The cars started chasing Leandro, eventually cornering him to a nearby bodega. CCTV footage from inside the shop shows a desperate Leandro seeking refuge and trying to hide behind a counter, but he was spotted by one of the gang members. A scuffle ensued, and Leandro was dragged out of the bodega. What happened next shocked the entire city of New York. Armed with large knives and machetes, the 5 took turns brutally stabbing the teenager before fleeing in getaway cars. After the attack, a severely injured Leandro managed to enter the shop but was sent outside. Fading fast, he gestured towards onlookers to call 911. He then started running towards St. Barnabas Hospital, which was just a block away, before collapsing at the entrance. Passers-by desperately tried to save Leandro, but 2 police officers just stood by watching the scene. They were later investigated for failing to help. Just 20 minutes later, Leandro passed away as a result of a fatal stab wound to his neck. Police soon got hold of the CCTV footage and arrested the 5 suspects, charging them with first-degree murder. At their trial, a sixth member of the Trinitarios gang, Kevin Alvarez, testified against the 5 murderers. Alvarez, who had helped drag Leandro out of the bodega, identified the suspects in exchange for lesser time served for conspiracy charges. Eventually, the jury convicted the 5 gang members for the brutal murder of Leandro Guzman Feliz.
Allegedly drove to the territory of the Sunset Group, came upon Junior and chased him into a bodega.
Daniel Fernandez, Jose Tavares, Gabriel Ramirez Concepcion, Danilo Payams Pacheco, and Ronald Urena each received 12 to 18 years, joining 8 others already behind bars.
At their sentencing, the killers showed no signs of remorse. Instead, they waved gang signs and shouted gang slogans. Filled with pains, Junior's mother stated,
"They kill my son. They kill a baby. They kill a 15 years old. They did not kill a man and a gang member or not. They kill a good boy."
Jonaiki Estrella, who delivered the fatal blow, was sentenced to life without parole. Jose Munz, Elvin Garcia, and Antonio Santiago each received 25 years to life, while Manuel Rivera was sentenced to 23 years to life in prison. Which of these gang leaders do you believe truly deserved their sentence? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.